This is Justin Papadakis, Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer of the USL, and I'm on the Sports Business Conversations podcast presented by ADC Partners.
Hey, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners, and appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to check out this latest episode of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. Last I looked, there were about, 4.5 million podcasts out there. That's a whole lot of podcasts. So the fact that you stopped by here means a lot. So thank you. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but soccer's having a bit of a moment here in the U.S. The MLS continues to grow. Messi came to play in Miami. The U.S. women are literally the gold standard, and a lot of Americans became fully vested in a Welsh town called Wrexham. So go figure. Few people know more about this growth than this episode's guest, Justin Papadakis, the Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer for the United Soccer League. Papadakis has been at the epicenter of soccer's expansion in the U.S., and with new clubs and stadiums coming online on a seemingly weekly basis, a new women's league doubling in size in 3 years, and a new Division I league on the way, the USL is growing at a rate that can't be ignored by fans or investors. In our conversation, Papadakis and I talk about the growth of the USL, the integral role of real estate in his strategy, working with new ownership groups, and the USL's friendly competition with that other pro soccer league. So thanks for tuning into my conversation with Justin Papadakis, Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer for the USL. Hope you enjoy. Justin, I think it's fair to say soccer's in your blood, right? You've played the sport for Duke. Your father famously purchased the USL from Nike in 2009. At what point did the business side of the sport start to attract your attention from the competitive side of the sport?
Well, I'll take you back a little bit. As you said, my dad was a really good player, but before that, my dad came from a really poor family in Greece, and they happened to wanted to try to get a better life, so they immigrated over to Canada, and so he didn't have a lot going for him. He didn't have any money, didn't speak the language, new country. But he happened to be a great soccer player, which got him into a high school, which got him into a college, which then got him into a law school because he could coach the soccer team on the side. And so ended up having a great
soccer really
career.
Turned to the key as a key that turned a lot of locks for him.
It did. So he ended up having a great career. So for me growing up, soccer had this power to change lives. And certainly I had it pretty easy growing up because of what soccer did for him.
Yeah, but that's an interesting message, right? It was so much more than just a game for your family. This was the tool that kind of opened doors.
It was. So seeing the power of soccer, my dad and I happened to be in LA in 2008 when LA Live was opening up.
All right.
And so we said, wow, like even in a major city like LA, this area of LA had really a lot of problems, just turning the corner. It needed a catalyst. That catalyst happened to be LA Live.
Mm-hmm.
And so since then, because of the stadium anchor district concept, which really wasn't a thing at that time, you had this amazing development. And so we said, wow, if this is the power we can do in LA, what if we can take this and do it for soccer all across the country?
Yeah, you have this interesting kind of point where you saw how soccer transformed and was transformative for your family. Now you have this moment where it's like, boy, this can actually be transformative for an entire community.
Exactly. So we said, if we can give back to the game that gave us so much and bring massive economic development to our cities and create thousands of opportunities for players, coaches, front office staff, and contribute to growing the game of soccer in the United States, that was really powerful for us because it was our way to give back.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of work that had, that we knew would have to execute on that.
Yeah.
But that was the start of it, and we've come a long way since then.
Yeah, I was
But
going
still
to
a long
say
ways to go.
2009, right? So you've been with the USL for a little over 10 years now. And I think it's fair to say that there's been a little bit of change in the state of the sport in the US, certainly from 2009, but even just in the last 10 years. So as you think back to when you really started to dig into the USL and move that organization forward, can you talk a little bit about how that change in US soccer has really started to impact the USL since you've joined the organization?
So my dad had two kind of key strategies for how to execute. First was we were going to break out of the major minor league construct
Hmm.
that existed in American sports. So you had Major League Baseball and you had minor league baseball. In Europe, the Bundesliga is not a minor league to the Premier League. It's just another league. For the American context, I think the closest analogies would be the SEC and the Big Ten, right? One's not above the other. They're just two different leagues. The other innovation that my dad came up with was that we would go out as a league and structure these stadium deals over the next 15 years. And so stadium deals are very hard. They can take 2 years, they can take 4 years, they can take 10 years, they can never happen. You need all the stars to align.
That's a pretty wide set of goalposts right there.
Exactly. But because they're so hard,
Right.
That's why we would have to do this at scale. So just for context, right now we're working on about 70 markets.
7-0.
7-0. They all won't happen. Again, over 10 years, you have different mayors come in, you have different political climates, you have different economic climates.
But you got to plant a lot of seeds.
You have to plant a lot of seeds, and we happen to have a very good batting average, to mix sports metaphors. And we get pretty good at this.
That's not going to be the last sports metaphor we mix today, by the way.
I know.
I'm almost guaranteeing it.
And so that was a big change. No league has a real estate department. And so we have a large real estate department. And most importantly is over those 2, 5, 10 years, we really create great relationships with our city, county, and state partners and with the local community about articulating the vision and the opportunity to bring these developments to their cities.
This is such an interesting difference point for the USL versus what other professional sports leagues bring to the table, which usually say, okay, ownership group, you want to buy the franchise, here's the cost, you show us what you can do from a financing and stadium construction standpoint. It feels like the USL is getting involved in this process at a much more fundamental level, from helping all the stakeholders sort of bring it to the table. Is there a specific reason why that was important to the USL versus that model versus what is probably the more traditional, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes right now, model?
So to build 30 stadiums in 10 years, to do it at the scale that we needed to do it at, and to do it at the level that we needed to do it at, really required a different approach. And so land is there today, it's gone tomorrow. And it requires a lot of at-risk pre-development capital to go, option land, architects, engineers, lobbyists. You need a lot of a lot of money and expertise to go do this. But then we thought, if we could solve that portion of the equation, over those years, USL would keep growing in value in terms of our team valuations and status within the sports landscape.
Right, sort of the equity asset application.
Yep. Then most owners who want to invest in sports, for some unknown reason, what they don't want to go through 10 years of entitlement hearings, which that's not the fun part.
Well, you make it sound so much fun, Justin.
I think it's fun. Most other people don't think it's fun. So, but when we can deliver them essentially a turnkey project with a great stadium, with a lot of relationships built within the communities,
right? You make it simple for them.
Yeah, that's
you get them to yes much more quickly.
Get them to yes, and then deliver them value. for us, what we are building is a network of great stadiums, because great stadium districts produce great fans, and a league that has a lot of passionate fans is, can be very successful. And so we've taken out, I think, the hard part about the equation, and then enabled our team owners to really focus on building brands and building clubs. And they've done a great job doing that.
Can you talk a little bit about the concept of the stadium district for a minute? Because I think a lot of people, and particularly people of a certain age like myself, they're used to seeing stadiums surrounded by parking lots. And that's just not the way stadium projects work anymore. And it's interesting because one of your titles is Chief Real Estate Officer, which is fairly unique. Is there another league that has a similar title? I can't think of one off the top of my head. But that idea of real estate development and stadium construction being more or less inseparable now in the community impact. So how does the USL advise potential ownership groups on that kind of stadium development and creating value for community in a way that benefits those communities?
So what we spend a lot of time thinking about is the entire fan journey.
Okay.
And so unlike American football, for example, that has a tailgating culture, or unlike baseball, where there's a lot of breaks in the action, which means a lot of the consumption happens within the game, and the game's also, 3 hours or 5 hours. Soccer does not have a tailgating culture. It's a 2-hour fixed window sport with one break in the middle. And so fans want to go consume, part of their journey is eating and drinking before the game. And then because we have such a young demographic relative to baseball, for example, fans want to go out after the game. And so it's really important that we have the district so that fans can come do their entire fan journey with just leaving their car once.
Do you find that that's part of your education for ownership groups, that they don't have a fundamental understanding of soccer culture and how it differs from, I guess, the more traditional American, quote unquote, again, using your quotes again, I have to describe these because it's a podcast, so it's an audio environment, to that there's a ramp up to people understanding that?
So I think the concept of stadium anchored districts is becoming now kind of mainstream.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case 10 years ago. Now with great developments like the Battery in Atlanta for the Braves, or even at the practice facility, the Star in Dallas, which is where the Cowboys practice, but it's, even there they built a district around it. And so I think it's becoming more, now it's mainstream, but it did take some education. The other big, really interesting thing was when I started full time with the league in January 15, when I would go meet with our, city mayors, city managers, they were baseball people. And then within a year or two, a amazing transformation happened where they started retiring and the new generation took over, which were soccer people. And so they played soccer, their kids play soccer. And so we haven't had a conversation. And again, we have a lot of data points working on 70 markets with a city that said, I don't know if soccer is going to work, right? Like that conversation hasn't happened. And really excitingly too, now when we introduced our women's professional properties, we haven't had one conversation that said, will women's soccer work? And so not only that, they said, yes, we want soccer. We want these stadium districts because they are the placemaking that we want for our downtown. And so I think that's a real testament to how far the stadium district concept has gone and how far professional soccer has gone. And again, we're still very early in the journey, and you're going to see billions of dollars of announcements, even over the next 6 months.
You should probably just spring those right now, right? It's a podcast, right? This is big. What a great forum to make those announcements right now, Justin. I feel like there's been a sea change in what it means to own a sports franchise. you've been speaking quite a bit about the way the USL works with ownership groups and the support you give them. I mean, owning a team used to be, let's call it, a millionaire's plaything, right? It was gifted down from franchise owners to their kids and things like that, right? And now they're seen as investments for billionaires, and private equity is getting involved. As you think about, since your time at the USL, how has that impacted the USL, along with the expectations of these ownership groups for considering buying a USL franchise or getting involved in one?
I think you're exactly right. If you look back, even as 10 years ago, sports teams were kind of viewed as similar to a yacht, right?
Yeah.
It was a luxury asset, but very quickly that's changed.
Right.
We've always had the approach that we want our owners to look at this as they do any other investments within their portfolio.
Right. It's an asset class now.
And now it has become part of an alternative asset allocation within their portfolio. And so I think really making that jump and making it a business. And so for us at the USL, again, it's hard to compare directly with the NBA and NFL because even though it wasn't always the case, now they have so much TV money that it's a little bit different of a value proposition. But at USL, what our strategy has been was to say, okay, we are going to make the four walls work, right? Because at the core of sports, it's ticket sales, sponsorships, concessions, merchandise. If you can make that work, then add in media player transfer fees, which is a concept we can talk about in soccer that's something unique. We think that makes a great franchise. In Europe, I think what you're seeing a little bit is they've grown up on having media money there. So they haven't had to be a four-wall positive business. I think it's kind of like when a country discovers oil, right? Like you don't have to grow your industrial base because you have this money coming in,
right.
Or you win the
money
lottery
is literally
or something.
coming from the ground.
Exactly. But when we looked at it and said, okay, well, we want to be great, the foundation of the business has to be there. And then we also weren't going to approach the opportunity in sports by trying to be a star-driven league. Star-driven leagues do work, the NFL, the NBA, but you have to have all of the stars. And so what we wanted to build is a brand-driven league. Brands don't get hurt, they don't retire, they don't have to get traded, right? Whatever. And so if we could build strong brands and then wrap them within a stadium anchored district, you combine your traditional asset class of real estate with your alternative asset of sports, but they're very, they work together so well because if you have a successful district, that makes it easier to sell tickets. You don't need a star player, which again can get hurt or whatever. It's easier to sell a ticket when people want to come down to your district already.
I think it's a very interesting point from the standpoint of what does the average NFL team get from a payout from their media deals? I think it's like $350, $400 million a year before they even sell a single ticket, right? So when you have that, your focus is away from the four walls in creating a unique and potent fan experience. And so for up-and-coming leagues like the USL, it's really incumbent upon the franchises to concentrate on creating that amazing fan journey, which you touched on, the amazing fan experience within the games to make sure that they may not have a real close familiarization with the players on the field. They may still be learning the players on the field, but the experience itself is what draws them in. And that's a differentiator for what I think a lot of entertainment properties are thinking right now, more media driven.
And so, yes. And then we added, again, this is what, my dad, he said early on, and I didn't even see the power of it until we announced it recently with promotion relegation.
Yeah, we want to talk about that for sure.
No. And so and again, when you think about how to get fans interested in your product and how to differentiate from other sports product. So we start with having a great fan journey, with having a great district. But then having the promotion relegation, what it does is it creates matches of consequence.
So let's do this, Justin. Before we get into the why it makes sense, I just want to make sure, because there may be some people listening who aren't as familiar with promotion relegation as we are. So can you do, first of all, a quick explanation on what that means, and then let's get into the why it makes sense at this point in time?
Sure. So the concept of promotion relegation is that a certain number of teams go up and down at every season. So you have a playoff at the top and a playoff at the bottom. And so we're going to have 3 tiers. So if you're at one or the middle, you can go up or you can go down. And then every season you have a chance to move up or stay up. So
I think the easiest analog to make is like, this is a AAA baseball team winning out and getting promoted to Major League Baseball team, and the bottom of Major League Baseball, Colorado Rockies, I'm looking at you, would be playing in the minor leagues in AAA the following year, and it could work at both ends of that scale.
That's the American analogy. We don't position ourselves as minor league, but the analogy is correct.
Fair point.
And so what happens with that structure, and to differentiate from the American system where everyone loves, the March Madness, everyone loves, October in baseball, right? Because it's the playoffs.
So to your point, matches of consequence.
But the playoffs, those only for the top, X number of teams. The rest of the teams go home, right? So you kind of know halfway through the season or 60% through the season, if your team's in playoff contention, you're interested. If it's not, in the American system, the only thing that's interesting is what draft pick are they going to get, right? I mean, how much they can lose to get a lower draft pick.
The sandbag.
Yeah, so it's not a great fan dynamic when you're thinking about sport in that context. And so in promotion relegation, whether you're in the playoff at the top or playoff at the bottom, every game has a consequence. And so, in a lot of times, the bottom playoff is more exciting than the top. And so that's what, we thought about how to really structure the league to create these matches of consequence. And I think, again, using another American sport analogy, like a lot of fans might not watch the University of Houston basketball team on the regular, but when they're in March Madness, they're watching them because there's so much on the line, even though you don't know the players, like you didn't go to University of Houston, but there's a lot on the line. And so that's where I think there's a real opportunity. And besides the NFL, in the NBA, the Yankees, sports is generally a home and away media product. But with promotion relegation, I think it is the one opportunity to crack that national audience to create a national product. Again, just like March Madness has done with basketball.
So I think one of the reasons why promotion relegation has never really taken foot with other American sports is ownership groups are like hell, I'm going to let you send my $1 billion franchise down to another league or something like that. What was your interaction with franchise owners and participants as promotion relegation got rolled out? Was there kind of a baseline understanding that this was going to be positive? I mean, you see things like Welcome to Wrexham, and the story is basically all about promotion relegation. So I saw the benefit of it, the excitement that can be driven around it, or was there some concern too?
So there's always a definite concern, right? You can love the promotion of the concept of promotion relegation. You just don't want to get relegated. But we worked really closely with our owners and did a lot of statistical analysis around sports around the world to show how we could capture the benefits of promotion relegation, the intrigue of the fan, whether they're the increase of attendance in those relegation matches, the increase in viewership for the promotion relegation matches, the just interest from corporate partners about being part of this, novel concept within the United States. Same thing for media partners. And so we worked closely with them and just showed how can we differentiate from the MLS in a sustainable way that creates a lot of intrigue into the product. And I think promotion relegation was really that tool that we came to, with in consultation with our owners, that this is how USL can be a national product, exciting for fans, and deliver a lot of value in terms of economic value for our franchises, but also, again, how do you make it a league that players want to play in?
Right.
Players, they want to play when there's a lot on the line, right? Like that is why they play the game. Fans, they want to come because there's a lot on the line. If that's our starting point, then we can build from there. What we don't have, as much as I'd love, a big media deal, and we'll get to that in, the next couple of years, but media is not 60% of our revenue, right? So if you do go down, you're not financially devastated. And then we started this year with the Interleague Cup. And so even if you do go down, you're still playing against your regional rivals.
The landing is softer.
The landing is softer. And the next year, you can go back up.
So it's promotion relegation is just one thing that's happening. Now it's a big thing. Like, I don't want to understate it. This is a big thing. It's unique in particularly American sports. I absolutely understand what you're saying. It has that dynamism that's going to make like field storming moments for last place teams, right? When they avoid relegation or, if we're able to come up or move up or things like that. So I really see that that's going to be something that's really powerful and fun to talk about. Like, people are going to get interested in that. But it's far from the only thing that USL is doing. Like, we recently launched Division One, which something referred to as a defining moment for USL and the future of soccer in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about the launch of Division One and what the expectations are for the USL and how that's going to impact it?
So again, when we thought about ProRel, one of the ways to really amplify it was to have 3 tiers, because then it's not just you're going up or going down, like you can go up twice. And so it really create, double the amount of intrigue, so to speak, that you could have. That's part one. Part two was there definitely is a cachet associated, especially in the United States, with being Division One, and that being a benchmark for this, the lineage between major and minor. They're just an association between Division One and major. And thirdly, we are building stadiums that meet U.S. soccer's requirement for Division One. And so if we are meeting the standards, and there's certainly, our stadiums will I would compare to anywhere around the world. If you take out the big 5 teams from, England and Spain and Germany, our stadiums are certainly comparable. Our revenues, on a 4-wall basis can be comparable. Our cities from a population corporate base are much larger. And so we meet Division One. We should go be Division One. And then there's a lot of technical reasons in soccer where, you can get promoted. You can qualify for the FIFA Club World Cup. You come in a different place in the Open Cup. So some like other technical reasons why it matters. But most importantly, it was, we met the criteria. So why not?
Right. So meeting the criteria, creating more bandwidth for promotion relegation, it just sort of seems to fit. It's like the Lego piece that you fit in the last one that goes in to make the entire picture complete.
Exactly.
So Division One, women's sports, you brought up previously, women's soccer, and the Gainbridge Super League is a relatively new entry into the USL's portfolio. I'm assuming there has been tremendous interest. You launched with 8 teams, several more a lot of more markets coming online in just next year or two. So with the rapid expansion of interest in women's sports, how do we, as the USL, look at me, I'm getting so excited, I'm making myself part of the whole endeavor. How do you create distinction with the other professional women's soccer league like the NWSL? Is that a competitive environment? Is there enough room for both of these leagues to compete? Well, how does that currently fitting into what your operations are like?
So from a starting point, I'd say women's sports and certainly women's soccer, the the hurdle hasn't been the quality of talent on the field. It's been a dramatic lack of putting these amazing women athletes on the same quality stage as their male counterparts.
Mm.
If you take the Cowboys and put them in a high school stadium, it doesn't feel like the Cowboys anymore. And certainly it was an impossible situation because if you're not in a proper stadium, you can't create the revenues, which means you can't create the game experience, which means you can't create the fan experience, right? So it was
Right.
this
It's like
chicken
going
and egg
uphill on a
problem.
slippery slope.
Exactly. And so now what these amazing athletes have shown, if you put them on an equivalent stage, fans will certainly come support them in the same numbers. Corporate partners will support them in the same numbers, and actually more in a lot of cases. And it's a great media product. We have the benefit in the United States that our American women are the gold standard, maybe similar to the Brazilian or Argentinian men. And so we have the best talent here. There was, before we started the Super League, there were, I think, 40,000 college players, and there were, 250 positions
Yeah, not
available.
so many playing opportunities.
Not so many playing opportunities. And so we are going to dramatically increase that. And what's a little challenging with the sport too is you need the entire ecosystem to rise at the same time.
Mm.
You need the players, the coaches, the facilities, the media partners, the corporate partners. You need all the referees, like you need the whole ecosystem rise at the same time. And so the NWSL has done a great job. We are approaching the opportunity a little bit differently. It's again, our season's different. We are going to be in a lot more cities than they are. So when you can see, when little girls can go to the game, go to their stadium and say, if I miss some parties and work as hard as my brother, I can be on Peacock on NBC just like the boys can.
Right, playing in the
That's
same
very
stadium.
powerful. Playing in the same stadium, right? And so that is a mission that's really important for us. I have a year and a half year old daughter. I want her to go say, if I want to be a professional player or I want to be a president of a team or a league, there's going to be hundreds of opportunities on and off the field for my daughter, just like, all the other little girls across the United States, that they can reach the pinnacle of a true professional league and sport in here in the United States. So we've also taken a little bit different approach again than the NWSL, where we have a full pyramid. So from our academy to our pre-pro, which is essentially the top college players during the summer,
right,
up to professional, we are going to be, the largest fully integrated women's to girls professional pyramid. And it's something that is core to our mission of being a community club, because communities want to support their male athletes just like their women's athletes.
With everything that's going on, right? Everything we've talked about, right? Growth of Division One, women's soccer is exploding, commercial stadium opportunities that you're building. I'm assuming you have to get approached by ownership groups on a more than regular basis, right? Sports, like we talked about early on, it's like becoming an investment class. Lots of people looking to get in, and the USL seems to represent this opportunity to do so that's kind of unique. So, as you think, how do you determine like who can be an effective ownership group? Are there things that stand out from you other than just having all the financial backing, right?
Yeah.
Are the things that separate viable groups from ones that are kind of the wannabes in your mind? Because it's got to happen all the time.
So as you said, I think very appropriately, having the money is, it's necessary, but certainly not sufficient.
Right.
What
It's one
we
part of the
really try,
equation.
one part of the equation, but what we actually really prioritize more is having a group because we want to make our clubs community clubs. And when you have actual, not just interest, but financial interest from a lot of the business leaders within the community, that creates a stronger opportunity for our teams to be very successful, because we have owners in cities from that have different background. They're in different sectors. They have different relationships. They have different skill sets. But what they have in common is they feel really passionately about building these clubs. And so I think that's what we really look for. There's a lot, I would say the significant majority of our team owners have a strong connection to their community.
Yeah.
What I hear from them a lot is, again, they really like the track record of our team asset appreciation. But when they're thinking about their investment dollars, they can go invest in a warehouse, somewhere, and, done in their community or out their community. It doesn't have the multiplying factor that a sports team does.
Right.
Because the sports team is a community asset, it opens doors for them within their current businesses. So it helps them financially, but more important is it's really a community asset, and one that they can have that multiplying factor by being part of a stadium anchor development, by having the players, work with the young kids, by being in the schools, by being in the hospitals. That's what there is really not a lot of other investment options that have that type of community impact and financial results that having a USL team does.
So there's this other professional soccer organization in the United States that gets a little bit of attention too. Would you call it a rivalry with MLS? Do you just occupy completely different spaces within the market? Do you keep an eye on what they're doing? Do you focus specifically on what you're doing? What's that relationship like on your day-to-day basis?
Well, I think we have great personal relationships with everyone at the MLS, from Don all the way down. We share a same mission, which is to grow the game of soccer. We approach it differently, but we have the same mission. And again, I would include the NWSL in that as well. We focus on, we have kind of two different categories of teams. I'd say in most of our markets, we're the top level of soccer, and in Omaha and Greenville. And then where we have teams competing in the same market, I don't actually view them as rivals, because we're approaching, so take Los Angeles, for example. We have a new team starting in the Antelope Valley, which is, again, part of the greater Los Angeles area. But we think that community, it's a submarket of LA, that we can deliver a lot more value by having a team local there than just having. Not everyone in LA can drive 2 hours to go to a game, or has $200 a ticket. That's not, and so
people listening in LA right now, 2 hours to drive 10 miles are really starting to understand. So thank God you have a team in Antelope Valley.
And you can see, again, even though the team just started, how much passion and excitement that we're building the team around the identity of the AV.
Yeah.
Which
something to call their own.
Something to call their own. And so I think you'll see that, most recently in Dallas, where our men's team, Atletico Dallas, they had hundreds or thousands of people at their brand launch. They're building a new $70 million training center. So it's happening all across the country. But at the end of the day, we want the MLS to do great, because, we want their team values to keep going up. We want them, they are a big part of soccer in the United States.
Yeah.
And again, we share the same mission, which is to grow the game. And if we can do that together, then we're successful.
So as we wrap up, as you start to think about what's getting you excited about, there was so much going on, right? And growth happening so quickly in so many different markets, 70 different projects happening. And at this moment, where are you most excited about where things are headed? Are there things that you, in the development of the league, or that get you up out of bed in the morning and think, I can't wait for that thing to happen or see how that evolves?
Without a doubt, for me, what keeps me motivated is seeing a new club launch and seeing the relationships that we form over multiple years, seeing the billions of dollars of economic impact that's going to our cities, and to have to play a part in that alongside growing this game again from, we talked about at the beginning. That's what gave my family the opportunity in life was soccer. And so to be part of that, hopefully, if we do our job correctly, for thousands of other people, whether they have a restaurant next to one of our stadiums or they're a player that got to play in the academy that moved their way up to the first team, or someone that is really good in graphic design that is able to, and that loves soccer and is able to work at the front office and have a career rather than a job. That is what is our mission. That's what my dad's vision has been since he bought the league back in late 08, 09. And I think that we are executing on that very well. And the most fun part is that we are still very early on in our journey to build out first class clubs all across the country. And so it's an exciting time to be in the sport, and we're grateful to be part of the game of soccer's growth in the United States.
So I'm with Justin Papadakis. He is the Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer for the USL. Justin, I appreciate the time. And I'd end it there, but I got to put you in the lightning round. So
let's do it.
All right. Very confident. We'll see how this goes because this is challenging stuff. I'm going to start with softball. I'm going to start with softball for you because that's the kind of nice host that I am. You played goalie for Duke. Would you have any thoughts on shutting out arch rival North Carolina 3 times in 2 seasons as the goalie? Have any warm feelings in the cockles of your heart you want to share?
Well, we definitely don't have a lot of love for the Tar Heels.
No, the fact that you actually said Tar Heel is amazing.
In my family, but again, I would say Duke, along with other schools, maybe even including Chapel Hill, they play a huge role in soccer in the United States. And I have a lot of friends and teammates that played at the highest level and now are still involved with the game. From
so you can all just get along actually in the front
office.
Yeah,
we can. So it's it's a critical part of the soccer ecosystem, and one that again we're happy to support primarily through our League 2 and W pre-professional programs.
What's the best, or let's put this, what's your favorite USL mascot?
Ooh, that's tough.
I was gonna say, I'll give you some grace here. You can have more than one.
Well, I think one of the most controversial / interesting would be from our League 2 side in Portland, the Portland Bangers. And so if your listeners, Bangers and Mash, it's a it's a dish. So I would go say go look up the Portland Bangers, and that has to be one of the most, I think, going to be one of the most talked about.
My sister lives up in Portland. I'm sure to be able to go get some merch here in the not too distant future. Your dad played professionally in ASL in the 70s. Who would have the upper hand in a penalty shootout between the two of you?
So definitely my dad. My dad was a great player. I was a good player with a great coach. So that would definitely, I'd be on the short end of that one.
Okay, all right, fair enough. The old man gets the nod. Last one. What would have been your dad's reaction if you told him you wanted to play American football?
Well, that would be tough in our family. The first
might be an understatement.
The first soccer practice for my kids, for my niece and nephew, is close to a religious experience. It's a
religious holiday.
Yeah, and so the photos are framed. The entire extended family comes down, which makes it a little awkward with all of our other parents that, it's just another Saturday
There's
morning.
45 Papadakises on the sidelines.
Yeah. And so it's one of these special days in our family's lives, the first soccer practice.
Justin Papadakis, Deputy CEO and Chief Real Estate Officer for the USL. Really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the One-on-One Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And don't forget, you can always find past episodes at abcpartners.com/podcast. This podcast is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Dave Almy. And the theme music was composed by Scott Holmes.